so we can mess with the adaptive sample limits and samples per frame. So if you read this down here, and I'll read it for you, because this is a little newer for the CS6, this little text box here. Samples per frame controls the number of motion blur samples for classic 3D layers. And we're in classic 3D right now. That's the mode that our 3D is in. So here's classic 3D right here. Now 2D motion or 2D layer motion automatically uses more samples per frame when needed. So you don't really need to mess with that in 2D motion, up to the value specified by adaptive sample limit. And that's this right here. And we can increase that to have more samples when needed in a 2D layer. Ray trace 3D layers, like when you're creating 3D within After Effects CS6, use ray tracing quality to control the appearance of motion blur. So we've got the adaptive sample limit here. If we increase it, I'm going to increase the shutter angle here so we can see this a little better. Let's 360, because I know that -180 is going to be what we want here. Let's increase the adaptive sample limit to 256, which is double. And we can increase this to like 32 or something like that. It's supposed to increase the quality here of the motion blur. The maximum adaptive sample limit is 256, and you can't go any higher than that. And you want to increase that more when the when the object is moving a lot faster. So let me put this back at where it was, which was one. I can't remember what it was at, so I'm just going to hit cancel. Bring it back up. It was at 128 and 16 here. So what I'm going to do is make this animation a little faster, which I probably can't do with this on. Right. Let's make this faster, and you can see how the motion blur will change. See if I can bring it back to the middle. Let's see. We're supposed to get a strobed effect when something is too fast, but it doesn't seem to be doing it with this picture very well. But what happens is when you have a something going too fast in After Effects, it will kind of do like a, it's called a strobed effect, and it's like the picture actually seems like it's broken apart in the blur instead of all nice and blurry together. So if that ever happens to you, then increase the adaptive sample limit. I'm gonna increase this a little more. Now you can see how the blur is a lot different now. It's only on the sides. So let's try to increase the adaptive sample limit when it's in the middle, really far like this. So composition settings, and if you use this a lot, then the composition settings hotkey is Control K, or that is Command K on a Mac. So let's increase this to 256, and you can see how it is a lot smoother now. And I'll put it back, I'll put it down to something like 90, and we can see, you can start seeing how the effect is a lot, like, is not as good looking. Now it's a lot more blurry in between. I'll zoom in and we can look at it. It's going to just be blurred up. If I zoom in, it's going to be pixelated and stuff. We won't be able to tell, but you have to just keep a keen eye out for these things, and make sure you're paying attention to what it looks like. I'm going to put these back on the original again. 128:16, that's what I wanted. So I'll hit OK. Now a motion blur also works on masks, so let me turn this off real quick and make a mask. I turned it off just by clicking on the motion blur column here, and I'll just create a quick mask to show you that it also works on masks. So we got that. I turn this back on, and now it works on the mask. Yep. Now, if any of you have ever tried using motion blur before and have rendered and you can't figure out why it's not rendering correctly, I'll have to show you that. So we're going to add this composition to the render queue, and I'll go over that in another something else. So in another tutorial. So we're going to add to the render queue by going to composition, add to render queue. Now we have to come down here to this section here called render settings and click on the yellow lettering here, and it'll bring up a render settings box. We come down to this time sampling section, and there is a motion blur section here. Now it might be set on to off or on. Now you want it to be on if you want the motion blur to work correctly in your render. If you have it to off, it's not going to work. So that's something you need to make sure that is on, and that'll help make sure it'll help you like figure out what the heck's going on, because that's something people might get caught up on. So that's all I've got for you for this tutorial about motion blur. It's a handy tool actually, and it makes things look nice, so use that up. It's a pretty nice day out today, so I think I'm gonna go over to Bucky's house and grill up some steaks with him, and or maybe some burgers. Actually, I kind of would rather have a burger today because we always eat steaks. So I'll see you guys later, and I'll make some more tutorials after we eat. So have a good one, everybody. Have a happy Memorial Day if you were in the US, and have a, I'm not sure any of the other holidays if there are any this weekend for any other countries, so sorry about that. See you later, everybody. Have a good one.